Today's video is meant to help those of you that play the Pirc defense, as we're covering a high-level game played by Magnus Carlsen with the Pirc. I do want to mention, for those of you that play the Hippo, for those of you that play the modern defense, those of you that play the King's Indian, all those types of hyper-modern openings, I do think that these concepts will be helpful for you as well, because a lot of those openings really overlap in terms of their ideas and their goals in a lot of spots. And learning ideas from different systems can actually help you in any select one of them, as you're aware of different ideas that you can look to utilize and really put together. Before going into that game, though, I do want to mention that I'm giving out a 30% off discount for all of my courses on Gumroad. I'm talking about the Hippopotamus Defense, the Czech Pirc. I'm talking about really all of my courses, okay? The Modern Scandi, you name it. And all you got to do to get that 30% off, go down to the description below, plug in the discount code CHESS25. And if you do that by the end of September, you will receive 30% off on any course you decide to purchase. On top of that, anyone who has purchased a course in the past or is going to will get 40% off on the Endgames course when it releases. So when the Endgame course drops, which is really meant to get you in the top 1% of endgame players, I will email you guys, those of you that purchase any course, and you will get 40% off on that one. But here we go. Let's focus on the game here. Playing as black, we have Magnus Carlsen going with 1, 2, and 3. And this is how I start off all my games. Now, I don't play d6 on move 2. In all honesty, playing bishop g7 or d6 on move 2 and 3, in my opinion, doesn't matter. Either one is fine. Either one is completely playable. I prefer bishop g7 because there are certain setups where maybe I want to play d5. Like, for example, if my opponent plays f4, d5 here is a very strong move for the black side. So I kind of like to keep that option. And with playing g6, I'm going to be playing bishop g7. So you might as well just put it on that square at this point. But nonetheless, knight c3 is played. We have bishop g7. And notice we're not in a Pirc right now. We're in a modern defense. Bishop e3 is played. We have a6. I've been looking at this line in depth as I'm considering going for the FM and IM titles. And this is a very aggressive setup from white, right? We're talking about the 150 attack / English attack. And I've been looking at this move of a6 looking to prep b5. Now, Magnus Carlsen's opponent here, Jan Nepomniachtchi, did not play the aggressive f3 or queen d2 or h4. We instead see knight f3, in which case Magnus Carlsen responds with knight f6, and we have now transposed into the Pirc defense classical variation, in which case white goes with the move of queen to d2. Now, black could still play aggressively here. I mean, b5 is very playable, taking space on the queen side. And just keep this in mind when you're playing these types of openings, the Pirc defense, modern defense, hippo defense. If you're able to push this pawn up to b4 and capture the pawn on e4, that's great. Now, yes, you're not winning a pawn because white will also take the pawn on b4, but the centralized pawn is more important, especially in the opening stages of the game, because they control those centralized squares. And with us not having this b pawn here, we have a semi-open b file to work with. In the very near future, we're going to be putting a rook on the b file there. And white, on the other hand, since they have a pawn on that file, they can't fight for that file at all. I mean, you could leave your queen there, but the second our rook attacks your queen's going to start running. So this is a very good position for the black side. b5, very playable there. Instead, though, we see this move of knight to c6. Knight to c6, this is another way of approaching these types of positions. And bishop h6 is played. Now, again, in the Pirc defense, right, there's a lot of overlapping ideas with these other systems. The King's Indian, the Hippo, you mentioned it, the modern. Here, what I would say is that if you're going to castle kingside, you got to be careful. You got to play with a high level of accuracy. Those of you that play these hyper-modern openings know exactly what I'm talking about. You will get wiped off the board sometimes. That's just how it works. But remember, when you're playing these hyper-modern openings and you do get wiped off the kingside, look at the game, see where your first mistake was, and never make that mistake again. Never make that again. Will you make a mistake 1 or 2 moves later? Maybe. But then after that game, you look at your first mistake and you never make it again. Eventually, you're going to be a master at whatever chess opening you play with experience, right? Now, with h4, okay, we got to be careful here. We got to create counterplay. Now, in all honesty, I think b5 at this point is a little bit slow because white can play h5, and I mean, if we take the bishop, the queen flies in, and the queen's very close to our king. If we take with the pawn, queen g5 is a great move for white. I mean, that wouldn't be fun at all for us. And if we take with the knight there, then white actually takes it right off, and with queen g5, we can resign. White can pre-move with that queen. Queen takes g7, black's done. That's it. So you got to be very careful in those types of positions. Okay, so here, what do we do about this? Well, we create counterplay, e5. That's the best move there, e5. And if white plays, let's say h5 there, what do we do now? Okay, we could take on d4, right? And this isn't the game itself. In the game, Magnus Carlsen takes the bishop the moment it lands on h6, but we're just going over some theoretical ideas here. We're attacking the knight on c3. And if you decide to take on d4, we can take on h6 and then capture off the knight. We're up a piece. And most of the time in chess, even if you're up one pawn, this is something that I talk about in my endgames course, right? Meant to get you in the top 1% of chess endgame players. If you go into the endgame and you're up a single pawn, usually you're winning. Usually. And it's very rare you're losing. Here we're up a whole piece. We're up a knight. We're up a whole knight. So all we got to do now is hang on, right? Don't get checkmated. Don't give all of your material back. You're up a piece. Even if you give up one pawn, two pawns, you're still winning. You just don't want to give up everything. And if you do give up a bunch of material, obviously you want to only give up a piece instead of give them more, and then they have a winning position in the endgame. If white takes on g6, we're not taking towards the center. Taking towards the center is not always good, especially when this rook is on h1. Even if this queen was on d2 right now, I'm not taking towards the center because queen h6 and that queen is very active. We got to take with the f pawn, right? The queen and rook can't see h8 now, which is obviously good for us. If check, we can block with the knight. If knight d5, we're not taking that, right? I mean, if we take that knight on d5, we just drop the game on the spot. So instead here we can play the move of rook f7 and plan on capturing back on f6 with our queen. Returning to e takes d4. Let's say white just keeps on forging ahead. Okay, we got to take on c3. And this is the kind of game that you got to be willing to play in a lot of these hyper-modern openings in certain lines, right? White's attacking like crazy, and this is a very uncomfortable position in a lot of ways, but you know that you're up material, and you know that if you can hang on, you're simply winning because of that material advantage. Here, if white takes on h7, we're not playing king h8. That's a blunder. I mean, let's just put a blunder on that because white can take with check. It almost works, right? Because this pawn on h7, in one sense, gives our king protection. Sure, it's not a black pawn, it's a white pawn, but it's still protecting us from white's pieces. But here white has a check. And then here they could promote and then check. Notice, by promoting there, they lured our rook out, and now they take it. And now they're going to be able to take our queen right off the board. So what do we do here? Well, okay, we're not playing king h8. We're not taking on h7 with the king because then anywhere that bishop moves or in check, we can take with the knight there. Take with the knight. If some like queen e3, queen f6. We're looking to trade down, and we're looking to play actively here, reinforce the king side of the board. If bishop takes g7, we can take with either the queen or the king. I kind of like taking with the king because we have rook to h8, and we could start fighting for that file. And the great thing is when you're up material like this, right, you're trying to trade down, you're trying to make the game boring. When you offer a trade, your opponent can either accept the trade, which is good for us, or they got to run away with their pieces. Like in this case here, if we play rook h8 and then get our knight out of the way, that rook can either trade with us or the rook has to run away. Either one is good with us. Okay, both of those are good. So all that said, here with the move of bishop h6, we don't see black castle kingside, and this is something to consider if you're playing the Pirc, if you're playing the Hippo, if you're playing the Modern. Sometimes just wait a little bit on castling. Just wait a little bit. I mean, there's really no reason to put ourselves in that position right now. We see bishop takes h6, and here we actually see the first mistake of the game played by Magnus Carlsen. That's bishop g4. That's a mistake. The best move here is e5, striking in the center of the board. You have your knight on c6. Knight c6 is played. This very obviously supports e5 and attacks d4, so we got to follow through on that kind of plan. I mean, if d5, we can centralize our knight to d4, And if you want to take, then okay, we capture back, your knight's attacked. If knight e2, we can snatch off the pawn on e4. And yeah, I mean, okay, if you take on d4, queen f6 can be played. Queen e3 is the only move for white that is not losing. King d8 is a good option for black, because if you take, we have rook to e8. Notice, by the way, our king on d8 is actually pretty safe. We could also castle, which is kind of a crazy computer line, but we play bishop f5. If you take with your knight, we drop a rook on e8, and that's good for us. If you move your queen, I mean, there's only 2 safe squares that actually defend the knight on d4, but queen e3 doesn't work because, again, we put a rook on e8, and that queen is pinned to the king on e1. And if queen f4, okay, we bring a rook in with check. If you block with the bishop, for example, rook e4, crushing attacking chess for black. And if knight e2, the queen flies in, and the engine prefers black here. Yes, we are down a piece for a pawn, but based on our activity, based on our development, based on the fact that our king is castled and safe, and white's king is still in the center and can't even castle in the next few moves, if they had a few moves in a row, gives us the better game, gives us the better position. So knight takes e4 there. By the way, if queen g7, what do we do about that? We offer a trade. We offer a trade. And, I mean, unfortunately for white, they got to take, or else we're going to be looking at f2. So they can take... They could take again if they want to, but then we capture on d5. Here we are up a pawn, and we are winning the game because of it. With e5, okay, we cover the move d5, in which case we can centralize. What if white ended up taking on e5 there? Well, we have knight takes e5. At this point in the game, white has more development right now, right? We only have 2 pieces developed. So we do want to trade down. We do want to simplify things here. If castling queenside, we can play queen to e7. Take all you want. We capture with the d-pawn. We're looking towards bishop to d7. That's what I'd probably play because I want to limit this rook's activity and I want to allow my king to castle queenside there. And finally with e5, what if white goes, you know what, I'm just going to ignore it and castle. Okay, here, we're not taking with the pawn. That allows knight d5, right? Take with the knight, trade down here. And if knight takes, you can capture back. Here you have queen e7. In this case, we don't need to play bishop d7. The rook can't see that far anyways. So we can go with bishop e6 and castling queenside. That's something I really like about keeping your king in the center for a while in these kind of hyper-modern openings. If white attacks you on one side, you castle the other way, and vice versa, right? So that's good flexibility for us overall. And sometimes your king's just the safest in the center of the board, which a lot of players, I think, tend to forget about. With queen takes h6. Again, in the game here we have bishop to g4. The engine wants white to play d5, but instead we see the move of castling queenside. We have Magnus Carlsen taking on f3, and we have e6. e5 is played here. We have capturing off and knight to d7. Now, when taking a look at this position, let's talk about the pros and cons for both sides. White has the advantage in development and activity. They do. I mean, this queen is very active. This rook is very active. And this knight is well placed. And very quickly that knight could become a major attacking piece in this game. Now, for the black side, our advantage is that white's pawn structure is atrocious. I mean, you got an isolated pawn on h2, doubled pawns on f2 and f3 that are very awkward. They're not tight-knit doubled pawns. It's not like something like this here. No, they're all spread out. And this pawn e5 has 2 knights attacking it right now. Right? So as black here, because of that, because of white's weaknesses, we want to trade down. Now, white, on the other hand, they don't want to trade because they have the advantage in activity. Their pawn structure is a mess, and they want to complicate things here. They want to go on the attack. Now, in the game here, we have knight to e4. If white did try queen to g7, what did that queen just weaken? What did that queen just let go of? The g5 square. We can throw in a check, take on e5. We got 2 knights protecting our queen. Our queen is protecting our rook. And, okay, if white doesn't trade here, which they shouldn't, now they're down material, and they have 3 isolated pawns. We can look towards knight e7 and knight f5. We could look towards castling queenside. A lot of playable options here. In the game, though, knight to e4 is played. And, okay, I mean, our knight on d7 is pinned. I think taking here is just too slow. It's too slow, right? We got to get safe, guys. We got to get our king out of the center at this point. I mean, if we take there, white could play f4. Let's say we run, knight to c5. We're in trouble. I mean, you don't want to do this. You don't want to have it so you only have one piece developed, with white there being able to play bishop g2 or take on b7 or just play rook d2 and start mounting more pressure. We don't want that. So here you got to get your king out of the center. Sometimes your king's safe in the center. Sometimes it isn't. Here it's not. So Magnus Carlsen plays the only move that's not losing. And okay, I mean, queen g7 wasn't played, which makes sense because castling queenside. And I mean, what's your queen doing? In fact, you got to be careful. If like bishop e2 or something, we can play h5 and we are looking to trap the queen on g7. And right now the queen can't even move. So instead here we see the move of f4, looking to strengthen that pawn on e5. Notice as well, I mean, this knight is no longer pinned, so we have two attackers, no defenders. Now a pawn defends it, and pawns are the best defenders in chess because they're so weak. I know that sounds weird, but like a queen defending the pawn on e5, if the queen went, yeah, I'm gonna defend this pawn, who cares? We can just take it. I mean, I might recommend castling queenside first, but we're going to take that guy. The queen can't take. The queen can't take because you don't want to give up your queen. However, with the pawn, okay, yeah, take, right? Learn how to draw an arrow, Solomon. Take. The pawn can capture right back because pawns are expendable, right? They're only worth 1 point. They're not worth 9. So we could have 8 knights going up against this pawn here. If there's one pawn defending it and we end up taking it, we're going to lose material. So here we have the move of castling queenside, getting safe, connecting the rooks. Bishop g2 is played. We now have knight to b6, strong move. We have knight to d4, strong move. Here we have knight to f5. Beautiful chess here. The black knights running around the board, and we got to look at weaknesses here. I mean, this pawn on f4, it's locked up. It can't get defended by another pawn. There's no pawn for white that could push to e3 or g3 to defend it. And we're able to target it immediately with knight d5, and that's exactly what we see here. Queen b3 is played, and you know, c6 was played here by Magnus. I don't know about this move. The engine doesn't particularly love it because white has bishop h3, and you know, it's easy to see an engine move and just go, oh, okay, that's the best move. But let's think about why. Right? What did c6 weaken? What did pushing this pawn weaken? It weakened b6 and d6. Anytime you push a pawn in the game of chess, I don't care if it's move 1, you are permanently weakening squares. And that's okay. That's just part of the game. But you got to be aware of what you're weakening. That's why oftentimes you don't see GMs going g6 and then e6 right away. Right? Because by doing that, you have now weakened f6 twice. So yes, there are openings where you eventually get these pawns here and here. For example, the hippopotamus defense. But you got to be a little bit more tactful about it in that kind of spot. Now again, with this move of c6, we've weakened those squares. d6 is weakened. Now b6 is weakened as well. There's really not much white can do about that at this point. But right, this square of d6, we have a rook defending it and a knight attacking it. Now, white here would love to win the exchange. But what's the problem? The knight on f5. So bishop h3 here looks to get rid of that knight. Like let's say we play rook g7. White can get rid of the knight and then throw their knight in. And yeah, I mean, we don't want to give up our rook here. By the way, if we do give up our rook and then take back, c4 is played, we're losing even more material. And if we move our king, okay, playable position, queen g3 is a good move, just giving that pawn on e5 some more support just in case f6 is played, but we're not having a good time right now. This is not fun. Okay, so I think white there could have taken better advantage of that d6 weakness, but we instead see the move of queen to c4. I do want to mention as well, like, why was this even a thought? Right? Why was this even played? Well, let's say we take this pawn. Right? Let's say we take that pawn there. Knight c5. And this bishop comes alive. White is threatening a mate on b7. If we take the knight, checkmate, game over. If we take the bishop, checkmate, game over. If we play c6 now, white could fly in and just start playing very aggressively, going after weaknesses, going after targets. We're in major trouble. So here, the engine does like knight h4, attacking the bishop, trying to get that bishop to leave this dangerous diagonal, because we are worried about c4 stuff. Magnus Carlsen did fix this by playing c6, but of course by playing c6 you just created another issue, whereas knight h4 there gets rid of that issue and doesn't create a permanent weakness. But again, as said, queen c4 is played. We have king to b8, good prophylactic chess here. White's not, I mean, look, if we play like rook g8 or something, white's not threatening anything. But hey, the queen is looking towards our king, so we see the move of king to b8. Prophylactic chess, stopping a threat before a threat even exists. You see this a lot at the higher levels of play. We have knight c5 on the board, and now king a7. Black here going, yeah, I'm just going to tuck my king away nicely. I'm going to use my king as a defender for this pawn. And notice there's really nowhere along this diagonal where white could place a diagonal moving piece safely. White doesn't have a dark squared bishop, so this king is, by definition, a lot more safe on a7 than it would have been if there was a dark squared bishop for white. White has a light squared bishop, but the bishop isn't looking at the king now. Towards the king, but not at the king. And this knight is taking away e3. So is this one, and we're also taking away d4 with the knight, and our rook is looking towards that spot. So this king is very safe. And of course, if you end up taking on a6, we can capture back, and the king defends this guy nicely. Here in the game, what should white do? Well, we are threatening b5. I mean, let's just say white plays h4. b5. And white can't hang on to the knight. Well, okay, I guess you could, but then you lose your queen. So, yeah, I mean, this is just dead losing for white. White really needs to respond to this by moving their knight. For example, knight b3. Good move, right? The knight covers a5 and c5 as well as d4. It's a good piece. It's a good defensive piece for white as well. Here's black. I like queen c7, ready to respond to a check with queen b6. And hey, if you want to take, we can capture back with our king, looking to neutralize that knight. And notice, by the way, just how weak f4 is. Because of that, white should take on d5. They don't want to give up their bishop, but at this point, you kind of have to. And is this pawn still weak? Yep. So we're going to look towards targeting it. Right. But in the game, a4 is played. And this is just a blunder because we see the move of b5 for Magnus. And, yeah, I mean, here in the game, a takes, b5 is played. We're not going to take with the a-pawn because then white throws in a check, and they are able to save their knight. So instead we see c takes b5. White here, they got to let the knight go. There's no good check here for them. In fact, there's no check at all. And okay, the game continues now with queen takes c5, rook takes d5, queen c4. Here, black's up material, offers a trade. White can either accept the trade or run away, which is exactly what we see here with the move of queen a3. And I mean, there's a lot of things that someone could do here as black. This queen is completely neutralized along this diagonal. Every single square is covered by black. And there's a lot of options. Now, we do see the top move here with pawn to b4, attacking the queen. Queen a4 is played. I mean, white here realizes, hey, I don't want to trade into an endgame. So white's trying to create some kind of play here, but of course, we're now able to take on d3 with check. We have the move of queen b5. Black, yet again, offering a trade, and white has to run away. I mean, if you trade into an endgame with Magnus Carlsen, and Magnus Carlsen is up a piece and a pawn, good luck, okay? Good luck. b3. Queen c7 check is played. King a8. White's out of checks. Rook d1. We now have a check on a4. King b1 is played, and there's different ways of going about this. I mean, one of the ways, technically, according to the engine, is queen a2, queen a1, taking on b2, queen c2 here, and with queen b6, we have different options here, including queen to e4 with check. Now, I will say this looks a little bit scary. It's not super safe, practically speaking, right? We're up a piece and a pawn here. Why play risky chess, right? Play the calm move. Queen e4 check. Great move there. And by the way, if king c1, what I would play here is queen c2. That's what I would play, okay? This isn't what happened in the game, but if we did see that, I would play queen c2. Yes, I am giving up a pawn. That's okay, because I'm still up a piece. A piece and a pawn equals a win. A piece equals a win. So it's a win in either case. We can throw in a check, king b7. Hey, you want to check us? Go ahead. We have rook c7 ready to go. We're up a knight. And that knight is going to win us the game, especially with all these weaknesses. I mean, none of these pawns look safe. And once f4 falls, e5 is going to become weak as well. And okay, if white decides to play rook d7 on the spot, we can play rook c8. And it's like, yeah, sure, take on f7 all you want. We're still up a knight, and that knight wins us the game because we have one pawn that is a single move away from promotion. We are threatening a mate in 1. We are threatening knight e2, making it so that that king has to move. And according to the engine, we have a mate in 5 from this position against perfect play. So queen e4, white ends up playing king a1. We have rook to b8, and queen a5 is played now. Okay, be careful. White is threatening a mate in 1, so queen c4 stops that. Queen a3 is played. We have rook to c8. What's the threat here? Let's say h3 is played. The threat here is queen c1, and then taking again. The king's done. And if white tries to stop this with the king, okay, sure, we can't play queen c1, but we could throw in a check, and then, I mean, just take the rook. Or, I mean, technically, we could even go to c1 and then take. Right? Again, the rook there is hanging, so we could just take it off the board. But keep that tactical idea in mind. Those of you that do puzzles at chess.com have probably seen this before. Chess.com really likes highlighting this type of tactic, where against something like king b1, let's just imagine for a second there's a bishop here, right, defending the rook. We could throw in a check, and then against king a1, technically in that position, even with a bishop there, you could still take the rook and then fly in with checkmate. Or you could do the 1 and then the 2, right? Not right away. You want to get that king off so that it doesn't cover c1. That way you have a checkmate. Nonetheless, in the game here, I mean, Nippo Nishi, strong player. He's not going to fall for that. Rook b1 is played. We have the move of knight d4, and white resigns. Don't play queen c1. This is not a forcing move. Now, I think a lot of beginners, when chess starts getting played, a lot of beginners think about checks as a good thing. Like, oh, I put you in check, I'm doing good. A check doesn't matter. I mean, it can be good, but a check in and of itself doesn't really mean much. All it means is that your opponent has to get out of check. But I will say that a check is forcing. That's the good thing about a check. Is this a check? No. So white can kind of do whatever the heck they want. White could take on a6, for example. And white could end up pushing for a win here. Right? I mean, they could just get a 3-fold repetition easily. White could also start waddling their way back. We can't go to c7 or else white takes with check against us. And our rook can't jump over our king. This isn't leapfrog, so we can't do that. If the king moves, white keeps just waddling away. We go here, white takes, and before you know it, white's going to be able to take our queen. So be careful there, right? This is not a forcing move. Just because white can take it doesn't mean they have to. So instead we see the move knight to d4, keeping coverage on a6, and white seemingly resigns. I mean, knight to c2 is a checkmate threat. If you move your rook so that your king has room, well, okay, we just do our whole queen c1 thing. If you take with your queen here, you just took with your queen there. This is simply winning. So hope you enjoyed this example of the Pirc defense played by Magnus Carlsen. Keep in mind, in those early positions, you don't need to castle fast right away. And if you see bishop h6, you might be thankful that you hadn't castled yet. You can take the bishop there. When the queen captures back, your king is still in the center, and your king can often go to the queen side, getting safe, which is exactly what we saw in this game. I'll see you on the next video. Remember, there is that 30% off discount code available. Just plug in the discount code CHESS25 and you'll receive 30% off on any of the courses that you decide to invest in. And if you do so, or if you have done so, you will get 40% off on the upcoming Endgames course, which is over 20 hours in length. See y'all in the next one. I wanted to finish this video out by giving a big thanks to Walter, Steve, Rob, that's a lot of Robs, Ray, Roger, and the rest of my Patreon community. I appreciate you guys a ton. If you guys haven't checked out the Patreon before, there are some exclusive benefits that you gain by becoming a member, and I look forward to seeing y'all in the next video. Peace.